Yeah, let's go ahead. Now, this is a very unusual webinar for me. I have done over these years managing X-Culture, I have done probably at least 100 of them. And every time I was sort of the interviewer. So there would be a guest, a speaker, a company manager, CEO, owner, and then I would be sort of asking questions. For the first time today, I'm actually on the other side of the table. So all of a sudden, I am talking about the organization that is the client of X-Cultures, and that client is basically X-Culture. And so I guess I will be a presenter rather than an interviewer. So let's see how that goes. And as said, if you have any questions, raise your hand anytime, join the discussion, type your question. I would be happy to add you to the discussion room so I can see you and we can engage in a discussion. And so let me start with a quick overview of what X-Culture Academy is. It's a new program, I guess, product, service, I'm not sure what to call it. And let me tell you what it is, what we already know, and then most importantly, what kind of help we need from you. So X-Culture as a program, as an organization, has been around for almost 8 years now. It was launched in 2010, end of the year, and the original intent was to work with students who are taking either MBA level or undergraduate business courses in international business. And so the main purpose and the main goal was to provide students with an opportunity to experience in real life what the professors are telling them in the classroom. As I say many times, learning international business, it's like learning how to swim on a football field. You have to get in the water to learn how to swim. You have to experience international business to understand international business. And so that was the idea. That was a very simple idea. I thought we would have a couple professors from different countries, and our students will work in international teams. And in the process, they will experience other cultures. They will experience the challenges of working across time zones. They will learn something about international business in the process. But then unexpectedly, all kinds of new developments took place, things that we never planned for. It's not like we had some sort of a brainstorming session and came up with the idea. It just sort of happened. So what happened was first, real companies started coming to us with real-life challenges and questions. The very first client was Mercedes-Benz, but then ever since we would have about half a dozen companies in a given semester, and they present their challenges and students then spend the semester trying to solve those challenges. So the value for the students, for the participants, was on the one hand, the international experience. So the fact that they work in international teams, but also the consulting experience. So they would be trying to solve problems or develop solutions for real-life companies. So they would be members of international teams, but also business consultants. So they would gain that experience. But then another very interesting development happened. Many students wanted to participate multiple times. And so we would have literally, I'm not kidding you, like literally at least 100 emails every semester where students would say, I loved the project. I really, really would like to do it again. Can I do it again? And so we would allow a number of students to do it the second time. But then at some point it occurred to me that why ask them to do X-Culture the same way the second time when we can actually sort of promote them to the role of coaches. And so this way they will be sharing their experience with the new generation of X-Culture participants, but also gaining new experience for themselves. They can now be not members of global virtual teams, but essentially coaches, managers, mentors of global virtual teams. And so about 3 years ago, we launched what we call the X-Culture Coaching Program. And so every semester, about 400 people apply. From those, we select about 100 who had the best performance as students, and they have to go through 4 weeks of theory training. So we teach them how to provide feedback, how to resolve conflicts, how to facilitate online communication, all kinds of things, how to evaluate work of others. And then they basically serve as coaches. And in fact, you will be able to request help of coaches this time. And it is help for you, but it is a good experience for the coaches as well. And then the latest development or another development is what we call X-Culture Academy. And so I'll talk a little bit more about the name in a minute, but first what that is and where it came from is the following. We have many requests for allowing, or we have been receiving requests for allowing kids to participate in X-Culture. And there were two types of requests here. One, many professors have kids, and they see the value in this project for their students. And so they would say, can my child, my son, my daughter participate as well? He or she is 13, 14 years old, very smart. I understand the kid is much younger, but I think he will do or she will do just fine. Can we please allow your kid, my kid, to participate? And then the same type of request from students. I have a brother, I have a sister, or sometimes I have a kid. Can they participate as well? I feel it would be a very good additional experience for them. So that's one type of requests. And then another type of requests from professors who also teach at the school level. So here in the United States, for example, university professors usually teach only in universities. But in some countries, apparently, some professors combine jobs, and they may be teaching some courses at the university level, but also maybe teaching a course or two at the high school level. And they were saying, well, I teach at this school, I have 20 students, they are 16 years old, will be going to college next year, can they participate? And so I used to be saying no to those requests because, I mean, how would it work? You know, we have MBA students primarily, and then those would be kids. I mean, how? But then at some point I thought, you know what, there are so many requests. We seem to have enough participants, enough interested participants to maybe have a whole separate track for kids. And so we tried to do it, and last semester we tested it for the first time. So after all the selection and everything, we had about 99 kids, and we put them in teams. And so the ages were from 9 to 17. And so we had a few teams that were kids. Obviously, we matched them by age. So those who were 9 and 10, they were with 9 and 10-year-olds. And then 11, 12 were together within that same age group, and so on and so on. In fact, for the oldest ones, those that were 17 and were about to graduate from high school, we actually put them on teams with college students, those who just started their studies. So this way they were better matched by age and experience. And so I didn't know how it would go. I mean, I really didn't know if the kids would do well. And so, in fact, my own two kids were part of the project. So one was 11 and one was 14 at that time. And so I just wanted to see what kind of experience the kids have. And surprisingly, it went extremely, extremely well. First of all, it turns out the kids are ready and capable of working on projects with other kids. My kids would sometimes wake up like literally at 6 a.m. because they had team members somewhere in Asia and in Europe. And so they had to wake up a little earlier for the meetings. And literally, I was surprised that they did it autonomously. I mean, in many cases, they didn't even tell me that they would have a Skype meeting. So they were capable. They seemed to like it. They enjoyed the process. In fact, one of the problems was that sometimes they would be on the phone on Skype literally for hours with their team members, just, talking about anything and everything. So that was actually a good experience, just getting to know people from other cultures, getting to know, how to communicate online and things like that. Likewise, business. So we did select challenges that were age appropriate. So we had two clients last semester. One was a toy maker from Lithuania, and they wanted ideas for new toys, and then obviously the business component. So after you design the toy, or if you look at the toys that we already have, how would you market them? And then the other one was the Finnish Schools International. It's a network of private schools, and so they wanted ideas for school design. So the question was, if you can design a school from scratch, if you could create a school of your dreams, what would that school be like? From the way it looks, to the way the classrooms are organized, to what the schools teach, or what the curriculum is like, evaluation, all that stuff. And so the kids had fun. So they provided actually some interesting ideas. So I was very surprised that many ideas were actually quite practical. But then again, I mean, if you ask, about the dream school, I guess it's not surprising that the kids came up with some good solutions because they are the customers. I mean, the way we see it, the adults, is a little probably different from how the kids see it. And so it is true that many of the suggestions didn't make much sense or were too expensive, for example, to implement. But some were very simple solutions that the company actually was interested in to implement right away. The biggest value that I saw for the kids in this program was not even the cultural experience and not even the business experience, but sort of the project experience. For example, it was a surprise to me to learn that kids, including the older ones, like 16, 17-year-olds, didn't quite know how to write emails. I mean, like literally, they can write a quick comment on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat, a line of text with an emoji at the end. But when the time came to actually write emails where you discuss serious issues and your team members have to understand you, where you have to say several paragraphs in a way that the team will be able to comprehend it, I was like, they didn't know how to do it. So we had to literally teach them, or at least with my kids, I had to sit down and say, no. If you want to write a business email, you have to write it, properly. People will be actually reading that. So it's not just a funny comment. It is an important piece of communication. Likewise, scheduling, for example, meetings. Again, they had no clue how to go about it. They sort of knew that there are time zone differences, but that's it. And so we had to teach them how to use Doodle, how to, suggest some times to see, what works for whom. So just that experience of, being sort of in a real project with people around the world, and so kind of being a responsible team member. If that's the only thing they learned, I guess right there you have a lot of value. And then obviously, as I said, you do experience other cultures, you do experience, some business consultant side. So definitely there is some value in that as well. The best indicator of quality, I suppose, is the fact that pretty much all the kids who participated last semester asked if they can participate again this semester. And so we will have quite a few returnees, so participants from the last track that will do it again. Apparently they like it so much they want to do it again. For me, it's a good opportunity to see if they learned anything in the process, to see if the second time they will do better, if they will be more likely to be team leaders, or if they will write better solutions, or if the team will have fewer conflicts or misunderstandings. So we'll see if there will be any difference. Now, there is also something that we call the X-Culture Symposium. So twice a year, we bring some of our best students for a face-to-face meeting. We just had one in Italy a few weeks ago, and so there was a team of kids who attended that meeting. And so they also met with the companies that we had there. So there were 5 client companies in Italy. It was surprising to see that those kids actually asked more questions during company visits that the students, university students, asked. So the kids seemed to be even more engaged. And the presentation they did, I was very surprised. They did all kinds of preparation before going to Italy. But then in Italy, they did all kinds of rehearsals. They met frequently with the coaches to, get feedback. They tried the rehearsals a few times, got feedback, incorporated that in the presentation, did all this, presentation slides, handouts. Some of those kids were quite talented when it came to computer graphics, definitely more talented than I am. And so the final deliverables, the final presentation was quite good. In fact, you can even watch the recording, so we recorded those presentations. So yes, it worked very well, and the customers seem to be very happy. We have almost a 100% not only satisfaction rate, but return rate. And so I guess, I never expected that. I thought, maybe 10, 20% would want to do it again, but not pretty much every single participant. So when it comes to the product, essentially, we seem to do extremely well. The problem we have, and it's a huge one, is informing potential participants of what we're trying to offer here. And Jason, I see you raised your hand. I'll add you to the conversation in a second. We can go ahead and do it right away. But so the biggest challenge is how do you inform potential participants of what you offer when, one, people usually don't spend more than 5-10 seconds looking at the ad, and 2, you need about 5 minutes to explain what X-Culture is. When we started the program, the X-Culture Kids, we thought that almost all participants will be teachers who come with the class of students, just like what we do in X-Culture. We thought that it would be the model where the teachers sign up on behalf of the entire class. But even that was a little challenging. For example, for X-Culture University, the way we advertise is we just send an email, like literally single email, through the Academy of International Business. And because everybody who teaches international business is probably a member of the Academy, or at least is on the mailing list, one email covers pretty much your entire population of potential participants. With the school teachers, there is no International Academy of School Teachers, and so that's a problem. So there is no easy way to reach them all with one or a few emails. Second, and that's the biggest surprise that we encountered, was that while the teachers we reached were extremely interested in offering this project to their kids, in most cases they did not have the right and authority to add it to their course. Like even if they teach, for example, English or geography or something like that, university professors, like here at my school, at my university, if I would like to add a project to my course, I just add it. I don't need to get anybody's permission. I just, if I feel it's a good addition, I do it. At the school level, they have a much more rigid curriculum. They have a structure, they have a plan, and they can't just make a project as part of the course just because they feel it's useful. So we had a problem that many professors wanted, or teachers wanted to add it to their, offer it to their students, but they just couldn't add it to the curriculum. And so in almost all of the cases, what happened was they created like after-school clubs for international business. Just like schools may have an orchestra or basketball team, so they basically created an international business club. And so the students who participate in the project, they do it in addition to all the coursework, not as part of the course, but as kind of after-school club. At the same time, we saw a huge number of applications. In fact, almost all of them, about 90%, were from parents. So individual applications where a parent applies and asks to enroll his or her kid. And so that's, again, something we didn't expect, but then the challenge is, how do you inform parents about this opportunity for their kids? Plus, because the project goes in English, in many cases, what you see, the kids may be fluent enough in English because they learn it in school to participate, but the parents may not necessarily be able to speak English. And so what happens is, in many cases, you sort of advertise to one audience, but you would like to recruit a different audience. And so it's not always possible to speak the same language, like literally the same language with those different audiences. So you literally have to speak in the local language to the parents, but then explain that English would be required for the kids to participate. So those, again, created some challenges. But the biggest challenge that we encountered was, as I said, if we were a private school, for example, all I would have to do to advertise it, let's say if I did it on YouTube or Facebook, I would have a picture of a happy kid or a group of kids, and I would say private school. And everybody would know right away what it is. They would only have questions about the location, about the price, but they would know what the product is. When your product is Xculture Kids, you need literally 5 minutes to explain what it is. You need to explain that we will take your kids, we will put them in international teams with kids from all around the world. They will work on a business challenge. In the process, they will gain international experience. They will gain cultural experience. Like, you have to say a lot of words, and there are so many questions that you have to answer right away before people can even start considering that. And so one of the challenges we've experienced was that we tried ads on Facebook and YouTube. And so the engagement is like 3 seconds. And I checked, it's normal. I mean, it's not that our ads were bad. It's like everywhere. So the average time people spend looking at the page, at the ad, at the video is about 3 seconds. In fact, that's the average. It means that some people watch the whole thing, like several minutes, but most spend like 2 seconds. And so how do you capture attention in 2-3 seconds when you literally need at least 1 minute to even explain what that is? It's not something that has a term. I can just say it's an international collaboration project and everybody will instantly understand what it is. Nobody does it. To my knowledge, nobody offers something like this for kids. So potential participants just don't know. If they give us 5 minutes, so again, we looked at the stats, if the person spends about 3 minutes on the website or landing page, almost 100% of them sign up for participation. But how do you make them stay there for 3 minutes and actually read it and think about it? So that's a challenge. Anyway, Jason, Carlista, I see you guys joined us. So if you want to unmute your microphones, you have questions, comments, please go ahead. I can hear you, I think. Carlista, I think you're here. So did you want to say something? I saw you raised your hand.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I was wondering, have you guys tried tapping into the market of homeschoolers?
Yes, that's actually, yes. In fact, it's one of our kind of most enthusiastic participation or participant segments. Turns out, I didn't know that before, but I thought homeschoolers are either kids that have some sort of disabilities that prevent them from going to school, or some sort of crazy families that do not believe in government-provided schools, period, and they would like to homeschool their kids.
Yes.
To my surprise, almost all of them, in fact, the vast majority of homeschoolers are genius kids. I mean, kids that are so advanced that the parents don't want to waste their time on sending them to a regular school. They move so fast, and they are so good at autonomous learning that homeschooling works better for them. But obviously the problem here is that they don't have much contact with their peers. So they basically sit at home by themselves and don't really have much social life. And so the parents see this as an opportunity, Xculture Kids, as an opportunity for their kids to associate with other kids, to gain that, collaboration and social experience. The challenge again is those whom we were able to reach, the response rate was extremely enthusiastic. But then the question is, how do you find them? How do you reach them? Like, there is no category on Facebook, for example, homeschool parents. You can target parents in general, but I mean, only maybe 0.001% of them homeschool. And so again, if you have any suggestions for how we can inform that segment of the existence of this program, because I still haven't figured that out. I hear that there are some Facebook groups for parents who homeschool, but I just didn't know how to find them, how to advertise there. So huge opportunity for sure, but I need help in that area. So do you
I
have
was
much knowledge
actually
about it?
homeschooled.
Can you
Yes, I was actually homeschooled,
Uh-huh.
and I went to co-ops. So it would be groups of students that were so advanced in learning that we would get together, about 200 of us, just in my town. And I know multiple towns have it as well.
Right.
For example, I was in a graduation class of 1,000 students for one county in Florida, and I know that they have just a group by themselves on Facebook, and there's about probably 5 per state in the U.S. of those that we could tap into.
Yeah. In fact, the winning team from the last semester, so they were pretty much all homeschooled. And as I said, I mean, like, for example, there was this guy, Adbe, 12 years old. I mean, come on, like, some of my MBA students are not even close to him. I mean, the way he talks, and because, some of them are homeschooled, they sort of know how to, they have better discipline in a sense, or organization. So the ones in school, they always wait that the teacher will tell them what to do, whereas the ones who are homeschooled, in many cases, they're much more independent, autonomous, organized. So we definitely want more of those participants if we only could find a way to inform them about the opportunity.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Jason, I know you don't have a camera, you put it in the comment, but if you want to unmute your microphone and ask a question, we should be able to hear you. The sound is so low, I can't really hear you. Yeah, go ahead. Let me see if I will be able to hear you. Go ahead, please. For some reason, it's extremely, maybe you can type your question. I will read it. So another thing that I wanted to share with you when it comes to XCulture Kids is the payment issue. So as you know, with XCulture University, we are not only nonprofit, we are almost I wouldn't call it anti-money, but we don't do it for the money. Even though there is a small fee that we ask universities to pay if they can, we always give the option that if it's hard for them to pay, or if there is no easy way to transfer the money, they don't have to pay. And it's $250 per university, regardless of the number of students. And sometimes it would be literally 150 students, so it's like less than $1 per student. But yeah, that gives us a few $1,000s a year, just enough to offer travel stipends to students for the symposia, and then printing the certificates and hiring some help. When it came to the XCulture Kids, we were kind of torn. On the one hand, we didn't want to charge anything. On the other hand, we thought it would be a good selection tool. The big challenge with XCulture is that it is a team-based project. And if you have someone on the team who is not actively participating, which you probably all will have in XCulture University, that spoils the experience for the entire team. And so for us, it's very important to be extremely selective, specifically with respect to commitment, interest, diligence. Not even so much for skills, but specifically for diligence, commitment, interest. And so we felt that we should impose some sort of a payment, not only to raise some funds to hire help, because we do desperately need help. I mean, it's a huge operation. We have like 40 countries, thousands of people, and virtually no personnel. So at least sometimes we can hire some students to help us. But as I said, it's not only for the operating expenses, but also specifically to impose it almost like a selection hurdle. The idea is that if the participation fee is, let's say, $40 per semester, so it's like $10 per month, it's something that everybody can afford. But the logic was that if people would not be willing to pay even that, probably they're not interested enough. And if so, maybe we don't even want to put them on teams, because they'll probably drop out in the middle of the project anyway. And if so, they will spoil the experience for the other 5-6 team members. And so the idea was that if that's the level of interest, then maybe we don't even want that person in the project. Yes, it is sort of, kind of reducing our revenue, but at the same time, it is good practice. It is, being more selective. And so at this time we charge, so we say that the nominal fee is $195 for the whole semester, so which is for students, it's 4 months. So they do 4 weeks of pre-project training, then they have a little break, then they have practical training, 8-10 weeks, and then in the end they have another 4 weeks for reflection. So we do like post-project presentations, and then they write a paper. So we do a big sort of kind of debrief and reflection phase. But then those who cannot pay the full fee, as I said, they can apply for a grant, and we tend to be extremely generous. So as long as it's either a developing country or a family has some sort of economic hardship, or they just explain nicely why they would like to get the grant, we usually give those. And so, but in the end, we would never drop it to zero, specifically for the reason that we think people who would not even pay a few dollars per month, maybe they're not interested enough, and we don't want to jeopardize the well-being of the rest of the team by putting someone on the team who is not committed enough. And so I'm not sure if that's the best strategy, but that's what we decided to do at this time, and it seems to be working pretty well. So just something that you know. And I see we have a bunch of questions. Let me read them. And again, feel free to raise your hands if you would like to engage in the discussion directly. So Jason is asking about vertical journey. I'll get to that in a minute. So and so we have a question from Indiana. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So Carlista is suggesting a bunch of potential either partners or distribution channels, and I would really, really like to hear more about that. I would really like to hear more details, and then any help in this area would be much appreciated. In fact, I'm even very open to the idea of some sort of a partnership with most talented students. So those of you who will write something interesting in your reports, I'm very happy to consider the option of hiring you and putting your ideas to the test. I may not be able to offer you a lot of money, but if the ideas are interesting, we definitely will be willing to invest something in testing them out. So let's see what you come up with. But if it looks like you have interesting ideas with sufficient detail in it, we definitely will be interested in giving it a try. I will tell you what I am not interested in. For example, I would not be happy or amazed by suggestions like this, for example. You should advertise through social media. That's not a good idea. I mean, the idea is great, but first, we've considered that already. We've tried it already, and there is really not enough practical advice in that recommendation. At the same time, if you come with a suggestion that you say, okay, you should advertise on social media, and you should be using, for example, Facebook, and this is the sample that you should select. These are the characteristics of the sample that you should select. And this is how much it will cost you, and this is how frequently you should post those ads, and this is the time of the day where you should post it, and this is what the ad should look like. So if you give me all those details, all of a sudden it becomes much more practical. I can do something with it. So I can definitely act on it, and if it makes sense, we definitely would like to give it a try. Likewise, if you say, for example, you should use sort of kind of viral, engagement. So, post something interesting on your website and people will read it and they will come. Not bad. Obviously, we've been trying to do it. It's much more difficult than it looks like. But as an idea, that's quite obvious. But if you come with much more specific suggestions, you give me some topics, maybe some samples of what those posts might look like, maybe, again, when they should be posted, where, how they should be shared, how they should be promoted, all that SEO, search engine optimization. So if you seem to know how to do it right and you give me those details, you do your research and you present those details. Again, one, I would be very interested in putting it to a test. And second, if it works, if you really did a good job, I would be very happy to hire you. So you do it for us as an employee or partner or contractor, whichever way it would work. So definitely would be interested in that. One more thing that I probably should add before we move on. So when we say X-Culture Academy and the name, so again, one of the things we never knew how to name it was because initially we started with professionals. So for many years now, every semester would have probably about 100, 150 people who are not students, but not kids either. So they would be in their 20s, 30s, or even sometimes 40s. And those would be people who are sort of friends of friends. So they would be friends of the students who participated in X Culture as university students. But then they shared that information with their friends and they said, I want to do it too. But I'm not lucky enough to be in a course, in a formal course at a university that has X Culture as part of the course. And so they would come to me and say, can I participate as an sort of kind of individual participant? So can you put me on a team? And so that's what we do. So we always have several teams comprised only of non-student participants, so professionals as we call them. And so that's one track. And we didn't really promote or advertise much in that area, though we tried. And so there are apparently enough people out there who see the need for kind of improving their resume, gaining some international experience, so that they can get a promotion or can get a better job. And so we have some of those participants. But then we have a whole separate segment, which is kids, people who are pre-college. And so initially we wanted to call the program X Culture Kids, but then again, the name kids kind of sounds like we're talking about ages, 10 to maybe 12. And so most of those participants are actually older. So they are like 15, 16, so kind of pre-college teens. So they would be high school students. And so calling them kids kind of, diminishes the value in their eyes. They don't want to be called kids. They want to be called, I don't know, they're adults essentially. And so we didn't know, again, what kind of name to use there. And so we went through a kind of market survey, focus groups, brainstorming. And so had like a dozen names on the table. And then eventually decided to call this whole program X Culture Academy. And that would encompass everything that is not universities. So professionals and kids, younger kids, teens, older teens. And so that's what we use now as the name. But as I said, I'm most interested in the kids segment, mainly for kind of making the world a better place. When we provide this sort of training and experience to a guy who's 35 and who's looking for an opportunity to get a promotion, we can help him. In fact, we get so many thank you emails every semester from people who say, because of that certificate, because of that recommendation letter, I was able to get a promotion or a new job. Happy, very happy for him, very happy for everyone. And we do a lot of research, and we know that cultural intelligence goes up from before to after. We know that people develop interest in working with people from other cultures. They're more confident in their ability to work with other cultures. All very good results. But when we look at the kids, that's where we see, first, the greatest improvement. And second, they will be tomorrow's leaders. They will be making, international deals, maybe diplomacy, maybe, just working with people from other cultures. And so my logic here is that if we train enough kids, especially if the numbers were in hundreds of thousands, which is possible, we have about 50,000 students who've gone through the X Culture project, and there are many, many more kids than IB college students. So I suppose we can have hundreds of thousands of participants. And if so, we can actually have a meaningful impact on the world. We can literally measurably reduce the chance of, Third World War. I mean, if the kids really improve their cultural intelligence, if they really become much more open to other cultures, much less stereotypical, much more confident in their ability to work with other cultures, it may actually have a very positive impact on the world. Now that the world is becoming more divided, walls and, Brexits and all that stuff, my hope is that through our program, we will make the world a little bit more peaceful, a little bit more collaborative, and a little bit more productive too, because much of the business and research is done collaboratively these days. And so by teaching this new generation how to do it, hopefully we will, facilitate this, research development that will save the world. Anyway, so we are almost out of time. So let's see what other questions we have. So if you would like to ask them live, as I said, raise your hand. Otherwise, type them in the comments and let me see what we have here. Jeremy is asking, so yes, what countries are participating in X Culture Kids? Pretty much the entire world. So as I said, last semester we had close to 100 people, and so we had the biggest representation was from India. We had quite a few from Africa. So we had Kenya, if I remember correctly, Ghana. We had a lot of Europe. So we had some from Austria, from Ukraine, from Hungary. I believe there were a couple of kids from Germany. And then we had a few from the United States, not as many as I expected. We had a few from Canada, and Latin America, so Colombia, Brazil. So there were quite a few from there. And then there was one kid from Ecuador. He even came to Italy later on. So as far as geography, it's pretty broad, and at the same time, it's very balanced. Like when you look at the applications for X-Culture University, a huge portion, like 30, 40, 50% come from the United States. And in fact, one of the big problems we have with the university is that I have to reject many applications from the United States because we want the teams to be multicultural. We want each kid or each student to be from a different country. And if I take in everybody from the United States, it will not be balanced. So we have to reject many applications from the United States. And even with that, we still end up usually with 2 American students per team. In the early track, by the way, this time we also had a lot of people from Colombia. So most of your teams have 2 Colombian students. With the kids, it's actually, no, not a problem like that. So we have, some countries are more represented a little bit than others, but there is no obvious majority. There was one call I got a few months ago, it was at the beginning of the summer, from India. It was from a man who is in charge of a whole school district. And he wanted to make it mandatory for all the kids in the school district. But they had, he said, I remember, like was 50,000 kids or something like that. And in English is the language of instruction in India. So language is not a problem. And it was like basically a whole school district. And so that was like, whoa, that's a lot of kids. And so we had to say no, regretfully, because we just didn't have enough participants from other countries to match those Indian kids with kids from other cultures. So a little bit disappointing, but hopefully soon enough we'll have enough numbers so that we can have we'll be able to say yes to everyone, so we have enough people from other countries. And so, yes, Danielle is asking about the name. As I said, X-Culture is the name for the whole organization. And then we have several programs that we just simply add the name of the program at the end. So we have X-Culture Symposium, we have X-Culture Coaching, we have X-Culture Academy, and that encompasses basically X-Culture for non-students. But for us, we also kind of differentiate between X-Culture professionals and X-Culture kids. So kids being basically children and professionals being non-student adults. Again, if you have better suggestions for the name, I'm very open to that idea. For now, we call it X-Culture Academy, but it was a heated, long debate. And in the end, we did choose the X-Culture Academy name, but it was not a clear winner. So it was not that everybody fell in love with that name right away, and there was no doubt that it's the best name. When you say, so Jeremy is asking, is there a current list of projects? How are projects sourced? So you mean companies, right? You mean client companies? Is that the question? And if so, the answer is yes. So it's a very, very good question. We have a lot of requests from companies that want to participate, probably around 50 or so per semester. And as you know, for the X-Culture University, for you, for students, we try to select about 5, usually end up with about 8 to 10 in a given semester, just because so many interesting companies approach us. Yes, there would be always like 10 companies that make clothing, so we can't take them all, we just select one. Several companies that make something related to food, again, we select one. But when it comes to kids, you sort of have to be age appropriate. You can't really just take any company. Like, for example, we just had webinars today with one that is a cross-cultural management consulting company. There is no way kids who are 10, 12, 15 would know much about that business and can learn it quickly. There was another one that makes fiber cleaning products like shampoos and stuff. But again, it's a very specialized market. Another one that makes manure, fertilizer. Again, I guess it's funny, kids might like it, but again, it's a little hard for them. So for this semester, we decided to stick only with one choice for the kids, which is Dream School. So Finnish Schools International as the client. And so the task will be the same for all the kids, which is design your dream school. And it will kind of have 3 components there. One, do your research of different school systems in the world, paying special attention to the Finnish schools. They're extremely successful. Everybody loves to love them because they show excellent results without much stress. So learn how that system works, but also learn about other systems, maybe one in Singapore that is much more structured. What kids did last semester, I really liked it. They spent a lot of time talking about their own schools. Like literally, they would snap pictures of my classroom, of my school. Some of them did live streams from their school, just walking around and showing what their schools look like. And they were very, very different. In fact, the school that my kids go to here in the United States didn't look that good compared to some other schools. Like literally, it was just, like a beat up building here. Whereas there was this one kid in India who went to a highly expensive private school. Like, wow, that looked like a country club. I mean, like, it was impressive. And so they would share how they do, coursework and all that stuff. So that's first component. Just learn what's available, what are the existing models of schooling. Second, design your own dream school. So if you could design any school, if you were in charge and had basically an unlimited budget, what your dream school would look like, how would you build it, what the classrooms would look like, what kind of courses you would offer, how would you evaluate the kids, and so on and so forth. And then the third component, equally important, how would you market it? It's still a business project, and I'm glad that you came up with this crazy idea for your dream school, but how would you convince the parents to send their kids to your school? Where would you advertise it? How would you advertise it? What would be your message? How high you would set the tuition, or who would pay for it if it's not private tuition from parents? So they had to think about the business side of it, and that definitely had a positive impact because, you can come up with all kinds of crazy ideas, but you should always think, one, how you will pay for it, and second, how you would attract parents, to send their kids to this school. And so that was a very good exercise. So that's probably what we'll stick with today. This semester, unless something really, really interesting comes along, we may have then 2 clients for the kids, but otherwise it will be the same challenge for all the kids. And it's not that many teams. So we want to probably keep it at about 100 total this time again. So keep it small and, quality over quantity. And if so, we will be talking about about 15 teams or so total. So there may be really no room for many more challenges because you'll have only like a couple of teams per challenge, which probably will not be that interesting. So yeah, that's kind of a long answer to your short question, Jeremy. And so Jason is asking about Vertical Journey. So we will see, we'll probably have another webinar with them later in the semester. This company is returning again. So we do have 2 webinars recorded with them already, and you can watch those. So the company introduction, as well as some of the questions and answers that we have in the middle of the last semester. But then we probably will try to have one more live webinar towards the end of the semester when you're already almost done and have more specific questions for the company. So we'll see how we can do it. So, but meanwhile, if you have any questions, if something was not answered in the webinars, you can definitely just send an email. We'll forward it to Rodrigo, the company owner, and we will ask for his answers and feedback. All right, so I think we're pretty much out of time. If any other questions are here, you can ask them now, but otherwise, just send them by email. There is one thing that I would like to add at the end. As I said, I am very interested in your ideas. It's a very interesting and new product that I don't even know what to name it. It's not a private school. It's not a summer camp. It's not a Coursera course. It's an international collaboration / consulting project, and I don't even know how to categorize it. So I do need help. And second, I'm very open to the idea of partnering with the most talented students. So you can look at this as a semester-long job interview. If you do well, I'll be very, very interested in giving you the opportunity to take charge and test your ideas. I will not promise that I will hire everyone who sends me something, but if there will be something really interesting there, and if it looks like the student knows more about it than I do, and I don't know much about marketing, period. So there is a good chance many of you know much more than I do. So if you're really more knowledgeable than I am, and if you really are organized and able to manage it as a project, I will be very happy to give you that opportunity. So maybe we'll try it for a couple of months at some nominal fee, and just to make sure that it works. And if it works, I'll be very, very open to offer you that job. As long as the revenue will cover your pay, I'm very happy to consider that. And so we'll, in fact, invest upfront from my own savings. And then if it works well, we will definitely look in the possibility of making that a permanent job. So let's see what you can come up with. As I said, it's an important, socially responsible, very important product. At the same time, as I said, so far the satisfaction is almost perfect. The question is, how do you inform the potential participants about this opportunity? And by the way, if you have suggestions for the product design, so again, if you think there is a better way to do it, again, very open to that. So it's not only the business side, but also the curriculum, the academic side. If you think there is a better way to do it, I'm all ears. I've been teaching for most of my life, but at the university level. And so I haven't really had much experience with the kids. And so if you know how to do it better for the kids, will be very, very interesting. Christian raised hand. Let's do this as the last question. So Christian, you should be with us in a second. Yeah, Christian, if you want to unmute your microphone, we should be able to hear you now. And while Christian is working with the technology, I'm not sure if that's his question or somebody else's, but what is the X-Culture coaching program? Let me talk briefly about that. So as I said, many students, in fact, a large number, like hundreds of them every semester, come back to me at the end of the semester and say they would like to do X-Culture again. And so for them, we created this coaching program where they, instead of being just members of teams the second time, they serve as mentors, as managers of teams. And so the main goal of that program is for the students to gain new, now more managerial experience. You will be graduating soon, you will be looking for jobs, you want to stand out from the crowd, you want to have the experience that nobody has. And so after a coaching program, you will have that experience. Not even seasoned managers, most of them at least, never had an experience of managing hundreds of cross-cultural teams. Experience of helping them deal with conflicts, with all kinds of challenges, issues, communication, providing feedback on their deliverables, facilitating all kinds of issues, selecting winners, things like that. Organizing, for example, things that they also have to do is, in addition to all the things that are listed, the coaches have to develop a text-based training module. It can be on any topic as long as it's relevant to global virtual teams. Then they have to record a video lecture for students and present that. Then they have to organize and deliver a live webinar. Again, some of them do multiple webinars, some of them do only one, but they have to do at least one. And then on top of that, they have to choose what we call a pet project. So any project that they always wanted to do, but never had an organization that would allow them to do it and implement it. So just to give you a few examples, there is one coach from the last semester who is building a platform for basically couch surfing for X-Culture graduates. Like if you go to, I don't know, New York, Rio de Janeiro, or any other city, we have X-Culture graduates there. So they want to create a platform where you will be able to connect with X-Culture alumni, which we have about 50,000 as of now. And maybe, I don't know, have a coffee together or maybe stay at each other's house, things like that. Another one is doing a documentary, basically interviews with the winners from the previous semesters. Always wanted to be a documentary filmmaker, and so here is the opportunity. So they will do all of that, and so by the end of the project, they will have this thick portfolio. They will have case reports, like every conflict they resolve, all these things like that. They will have like page summary of the conflict or case. They will have the text-based training module, video lecture, recording of the webinar, plus a pet project. And so when the time comes for them to apply for jobs, they're a very, very hot commodity. I mean, nobody in the competition pool has anything even close. Everybody who applies for jobs, in that category, they probably have a college degree, maybe some summer internship, maybe some, a part-time job, and that's it. And here you have someone who's done all those things. First was a member of the global virtual team, then a mentor, coach for the global virtual team, organized all those events, has a thick portfolio. In fact, one of the big problems we have in the coaching program that many people get jobs while still in the coaching program and then have to drop out in the middle of the semester. We lost 3 people last semester for that. So there were 45, I believe, eventually who passed all the tests and were in the program, 42. And then several of them got jobs while in the program and had to quit because of that. So I think that's a good thing. I mean, I'm very happy for them. That's exactly why we do it. But then it's kind of sort of a loss for us because we had to regroup, reassign coaches to teams because we had to lose some people because they got jobs. So anyway, that's briefly about the coaching program. The way it goes, it's only by invitation. So at the end of the semester, when you are done with X-Culture, we will look at your performance. And if you have high peer evaluations, if you wrote a good report, if your comments were thoughtful, if it looks like you're mature and skilled enough to be a coach, we will send you then an invitation, and yeah, you will be able to apply in the future. So, All right, so I think I would like to stop here. If you have any questions, send me an email. And I'm really, really, really looking forward to your ideas. As I said, I need your help, and I will be very happy to give you the opportunity to test your ideas as long as they, are rigorous enough and it seems like you know what you're proposing. All right, thank you so much, and thank you those who joined live. So it was very nice to meet you, and we'll be in touch by email.